Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, before you hit that fast forward button, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to the shout outs, then listen to the segment, and then go and visit these sponsors. You're going to be glad that you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Tables and Video Boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile. Their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and got little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, it's the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success, and so will you. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, snapraise.com is where you want to be. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper's the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team will help you create world-class content that'll help you celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. We want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that I used every single day, and so will you. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communicating with parents, with coaches, with kids, with your state association, uploading rosters, digital forms, you name it. Home Campus does it and does it better. Go to homecampus.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record board or your school's Hall of Fame. The website's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out. They want to help you bring your school's legacy to life. We'd like to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Hometown Ticketing is digital ticketing that offers you more support, more security, and more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys is about connections, and they're going to connect you with probably the people you already hear from, the complainers, the gripers, but they're also going to connect you with the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. Can you imagine having that data, all of that support, when you're meeting with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board? Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of your parents, your student athletes, and everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Allyson Appsey, and she's a longtime principal. We've had a number of principals on the show before, but she does a lot more. She is an author. She's a speaker on a national scale. She writes a blog, Serendipity in Education. She also works for an organization called Creative Leadership Solutions. We're always looking for some more leadership best practices. We're going to hear all about that and her, but let's welcome her to the show. Allyson Appsey, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And I've had the opportunity as a principal to work alongside many athletic directors, and I have great admiration for the work that you do and appreciate the necessity to have a really solid partnership between principals and leaders and ADs. So I'm excited to join you.
Oh, well, again, thanks a lot. And you're absolutely right. The best intentions on either end, from the athletic director side or the principal side, they're not going to work if they don't have and build and nurture, that great relationship. Let's go and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Allyson Appsey origin story?
Yeah. So I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you're familiar with Michigan, you'd know where it is. But if you're not, you just think Detroit. But Grand Rapids is actually on the other side of the state. It's the west side. And we like to say the west side is the best side. So no offense to anybody listening who's from the east side of Michigan. But that's my origin. As far as athletics, I was one of those students who tried everything and succeeded at nothing and got cut from softball my freshman year of high school. But they asked me if I wanted to be the manager instead of play on the team. I declined, but I did find a home in cheerleading. And we were state finalists for competitive cheer. So it absolutely was, there's like debate out there. I think it's been resolved, but whether or not cheerleading was an actual sport or not. But yeah, we worked hard. I graduated from high school saying I don't know what I want to be, but I know I never want to step foot in a school, a K-12 school again. And it's that look at me now, spending every day of my working life in schools and have since that day I stepped out of and graduated from high school. But I actually ended up taking an educational psychology class by accident and had to volunteer in a classroom. And I'm one of those people that like when I see a change that needs to happen in the world, I want to be a part of that change and a part of the difference. And I thought that I could be a light in the educational life of students if I became a teacher. So that's how I decided to become a teacher. It was a change of major my sophomore year of college.
I want to go back to your high school days. You mentioned that you tried every sport. We'll talk about cheerleading in a second, but as you were going through that, those tryouts, and as you shared, those cuts, what was your mindset? Were you thinking in your own mind, "Hey, I'm great. I'm going to make this team. I'm going to do this," or was there some trepidation? You knew you were kind of on the edge? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I definitely understood my own physical limitations and knew that it would be a long shot for me to get any playing time. I thought I liked being part of a team. I liked
Absolutely.
the social aspect. I liked the challenge of like the physical challenge of being part of a team. And I did find that in cheerleading, which I was grateful for, and I continued in that all 4 years of high school. And then beyond high school, I became a cheerleading coach. So it wasn't softball for me, but I did find what I was looking for.
All right, let's go and talk a little bit about cheer. I think many athletic directors would say, well, first of all, to answer your question, cheerleading, definitely a sport. Absolutely. Every school I was at as an AD, if it wasn't already under our umbrella as a sport, we brought it in. Now, getting back to my other point, I think many ADs might say that cheerleading parents are among some of the more challenging to deal with. What's your recollection as a cheerleader of that phenomenon? And as a principal, what can you share on that point?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. No, that it was not, maybe like the culture in Texas or something like that, where it was very competitive with cheerleading. It was very low key. None of our parents were involved. And I mean, they would come and be happy for us, but no competitive nature. It was very I think it was just, yeah, no, pretty low key.
Okay. For you as an athlete, competing on the cheer squad, what memories do you have of the coach or the coaches that you worked with? Um,
Yeah, I had great memories and experiences of them, nurturing us not only as athletes and improving our skills, but also just as people and supporting us. Now, I would say our parents weren't drama, but maybe we were drama to our coaches a little bit. Um, but I just think like even those interpersonal relationships, and I just remember every step of the way coaches helping us navigate that. And I know we'll talk about the work I get to do now, but I travel and work with schools across the country. And one of the things that I coach is coaching. And how do we
mhm.
bring that like mentality into the classroom where we're giving that real-time feedback and supporting our learners not only academically but interpersonally as they're working through challenges in the classroom. So I think there's so much that can be learned from coaching in the sporting side of things that can be applied in the classroom, and of course vice versa.
I've got one more question. I'm going to have you go back in your memory. Can you think of a moment in high school, maybe in college, that at the time it really didn't make an impression on you, but now looking back as an adult, as a leader, as an educator, you can say, "Hey, that was a significant moment for me." Anything stick out?
I think as in relation to my little career as a high school athlete, it would be like winning championships and like having our hard work pay off in success as a team. That was really powerful and just I think taught us about what's possible if you do work hard and you work as a team.
Oh,
And that certainly has impacted me as a professional.
oh, that's great. And it's great to have those types of memories, those championship memories, that you can still look back on now. Very cool stuff.
Now, ironically, the football team that we cheered for our senior year lost every single game, but we became champions as cheerleaders.
And that is not an infrequent tale. Yeah, I share this all the time. My high school football team, and again, this is 100 years ago, we won two games in my 3-year varsity career. But as
Wow.
we look back, and even at the time, it wasn't like, oh, we suck, we're awful. It was every week, the coaches got us excited, hey, who we playing this week? Oh, hey, we want to beat those guys. And we'd have a great week of practice. Sometimes we'd have a good game, but we didn't win. Sometimes we didn't have a good game. But the coaches really did a great job of getting us up for the game. They were
Yeah.
probably frustrated, let's say, with our performance, but I don't remember ever in that high school. Oh, we suck. The coach sucks. It was none of that stuff that you kind of hear about. So good for
Excellent.
you. You guys had a championship season. Okay. Hey, for our listeners, we're visiting today with Allyson Appsey. She's a longtime principal, speaker on a national scale, a consultant. We're going to hear about some of that as we get into our next segments, but let's take our first break. I promise we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo, and you can see their score tables and their score boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. You've heard me say before, probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. So go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and ended up with little, if any, return on investment? Well, stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraising platform out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our finance officer loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other platforms, but if you're looking for a fundraiser, go to snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational 80 podcast. Allyson, you kind of took us on that early journey through high school and your college years. And again, I think your comment is so very common. I was very much the same thing. When I was done with high school, I'm never coming back. And then I remember my first right out of college, I was a substitute teacher, and I was back at my old high school. And here's all my teachers, coaches in the faculty room at lunch. And I walk in and they go, "You became a teacher?" So, what was your story coming out of college? What were some of those early positions?
So I graduated in December and everybody told me like, you're never going to get a job. Just plan on subbing for the rest of the school year. And I love to prove people wrong. So I applied everywhere I saw an opening or even where I didn't see an opening. And I ended up getting a job and starting uh, my new teaching position halfway through the school year, which presented some challenges, but I was also team teaching 50 third, fourth, and fifth graders in an open space with two different classrooms. And I don't know if you're familiar, any of your listeners are familiar with the William Glasser's choice theory and reality therapy philosophy, which basically is you create a classroom that's need satisfying for students so they're able to meet their needs within the functions of the classroom, and you build great relationships with them. And then you don't need external behavior control systems, which is, it worked beautifully, maybe like the second year of teaching, but that first year of teaching, like I went from a classroom, and those who have taught elementary will understand like the red, yellow, green behavior chart where I'm moving an apple with the student's name on it from green to yellow to red, and you just had to like walk toward that behavior chart and students would straighten up. But we couldn't use those with the philosophy of the school where I was hired. So I felt like I was teaching with my hands tied behind my back, and I was doing a really bad job of it also. In fact, they almost fired me after my first year of teaching, literally almost fired me.
I seem to recall never taught. I think I substitute maybe once or twice in elementary. But my niche was middle school and high school. Elementary, I have great admiration for those who worked with those younger grades. Um, what did the school do to help you to not be fired, or what were some of the things you ended up doing on your own to, as you said, I'm going to show people?
Yeah, yeah. I had that stubbornness and determination. So I learned a lot my first year of teaching. And fortunately, they had me back and things went much better, as you can imagine, my second year of teaching. And then I think it was my maybe my fourth year of teaching. I saw a need. I was teaching at a school where we were K-6 and adding a grade a year. And I knew that when we added seventh grade, if it went badly, we'd have to spend the next few years recovering from the terrible start. I knew it needed to start strong. So I decided to move up and teach middle school, and I ended up teaching seventh and eighth grade for a few years before I became an assistant principal. So, I mean, that trajectory hopefully gives you some insight into I improved quickly from almost being fired to being a very successful teacher, and so much so that I was tapped on the shoulder and asked to become a principal.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question. When we're talking with athletic directors, I will ask them, what made you decide to come to the other side of the desk, in athletic administration? So, were you thinking about becoming an AP before the tap, or did the tap kind of start you thinking?
Yeah, the tap definitely started me thinking. I thought I was going to get my master's in educational technology and maybe then serve the school and like as a technology director or something like that. And then I got the tap on the shoulder to become an assistant principal. And um, I am ambitious and I want to serve the school in any way that I can. So I said yes and had no idea what I was doing as a baby assistant principal. Like I had a beeper. That's how long ago it was. I did not have a cell phone in the school. I had a beeper. And for those young APs listening or ADs listening, that's like a mechanism that you wear on your belt and somebody goes to a landline and calls it and then it beeps and tells you which landline to call back. So you have to then go to a landline, call that number back and say, "Hey, what's going on?" But we had codes for our beepers so that we would know where to go. So you wouldn't have to call back. You could just look at your beeper and know where to go. And I just remember being called to different areas of the school. And this was a K-8 school. And just thinking, oh man, I hope I know enough to help them wherever I'm going, but so nervous about my skills as a leader initially.
Wow. Again, the whole beeper thing, yeah, I'm having flashbacks myself. Um, all right. Successful tenure as an assistant principal, what was the motivation or what was the tap on the shoulder to become the person in charge?
So I worked at in a unique school where like I mentioned, we added a grade a year and we ended up adding through grade 12. So my principal became the superintendent. And then one day she just came and switched my name tag from assistant principal to principal. It didn't come with a pay raise or anything like that, just a title change. And for henceforward, I was the principal. And I was a young assistant principal and a young principal, which the downside is I didn't spend as many years teaching as some leaders. The upside is that I would say I'm still relatively young in my career, but I've spent 19 years as an administrator. And there's great value in that I've learned so much on the job, as we all do.
All right. Well, that leads me to an obvious question here. We use an expression, maybe you use it in the principal world too, talking about young coaches and even young ADs. The phrase is, you don't know what you don't know. When you made that jump and great situation, going from teacher to assistant principal and then principal in the same school, same people. What was something that first year that you didn't know about being the
Yeah.
principal?
And I think this is true for any leader. And I just was having a conversation with a district administrator just a few minutes ago about this. It's the reality that, we think we're chosen as leaders or hired as leaders because we know it all. And we don't know it all. And I wish I could say to, baby Allison, assistant principal, like ask for help, be coachable. And isn't it ironic that I'm sure in your world and in our world, like we're coaching students, we're giving students feedback, guiding them, and then we don't always follow that model or example for ourselves. And I think one of the best things for leaders in any arena is to seek out coaches, seek out feedback, be coachable, and don't think you have to have all the answers. I thought I was supposed to go in my office, close the door, and figure things out, and then come out and tell everybody what the right answer is. And that is not what we're supposed to do.
Holding the tablets. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Save some of those ideas for our last segment, our toolbox segment, but you're absolutely right. One of the most frequent toolbox tools that we hear about is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mhm.
Build that network. But again, we want to save that for our last segment.
Okay.
We're going to take another quick break, but having a great time so far. We're visiting with Allyson Appsey, longtime principal, now a consultant, a leader, a speaker, a blogger, and we're going to hear more about that. But let's take that break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to help you create world-class sports graphics to help celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. How simple? Well, it's so simple, even I can use it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their professional team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We also want to thank Huddle for their support. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Allyson Appsey, a longtime principal, and she does a few other things, and that's what we're going to hear about now. Allyson, you've got a blog, Serendipity in Education. You've written some books. Share with our listeners why they should check out your blog and your books.
Yeah. So I started my blog in December of 2015, and I always loved to write, but I didn't know I really had anything to say that anybody would want to read. And a blog is an awesome format for authors because you're able to write and then put it out to the world right away. Like you don't have to wait for the editing process or anybody to approve it. I get to write whatever I want, put it on my blog. And it's so interesting because you get immediate feedback by the readership. Like, so there's some blogs that I did not expect to go gangbusters and for people to read and share. And then there's some blogs that I've written or blog posts I've written that I think are pretty good, and then nobody reads it. Or even like some I'll put blogs out there, blog posts, and nobody will read it in the first year, but then all of a sudden like it catches on like a year or two later, and the readership explodes. So I named my blog Serendipity in Education because I fell in love with the idea of serendipity when I watched a 2001, I think, movie called Serendipity that stars John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale, if anybody's into cute rom-coms. It's still cute, even though it's older, if you want to watch it. But I was teaching 7th and 8th grade students at the time when I watched it, and I was going to teach them a character education class. And I knew if I called it character education, they would like roll their eyes as they were walking in the door. So I tricked them and I called the class Serendipity. But it was interesting because we also dove into what does serendipity mean? And if you look it up in the dictionary, it means like a happy accident. But we talked about what if we spent our lives looking for happy accidents and beautiful lessons in everything we experience? And that translated into my first book, which is called The Path to Serendipity. And one of the stories I talk about in that book is when my mom was sick with cancer, and that when she went through treatment and then ultimately passed away. And, how do you find beautiful lessons and happy accidents in an experience like that?
I think I sidetracked my thinking there and the John Cusack movie because I do remember that movie, which had not immediately popped into my mind, hearing the name of your blog. Um, as you read those comments, okay, I'm going to guess it's similar to, and it's not prolific at all, but for the books that we've published, um, there'll be 90 comments that are all, great book, great resource, etc. And then the 91st comment, it's like 1 star and there's no words at all. And I'm just crushed seeing that 1 star, ignoring the other 90. Do you get any of that feeling when you're seeing reviews or comments on your blogs? Because like you said, the blog is much more instant.
Yes, yes. Certainly you do get pushback, and that's just information also. But I did a TEDx talk that's called Serendipity is Everywhere. And I tell the story of, finding the happy accidents and beautiful lessons as my mom was, going through the treatment and her then ultimately passing away. And somebody like there's many, almost all positive comments and like positive reviews on the TED talk, but somebody put in there like, this is a nice talk, but she doesn't understand the definition of serendipity. And I'm like, well, actually I do. I can look it up in the dictionary, but I'm an artist. And when you're an artist, you can make up your own definitions or you can interpret words in your own way. And that's really, the case for me with this idea of serendipity. And it's, like we go through really high highs and deep lows. And then we have all the everyday in between stuff going on in our lives. And I truly believe we can become better versions of ourselves if we look at all of those experiences, whether they feel good or they feel horrible, as opportunities to become better versions of ourselves. And I talked about, when my mom was sick, I thought, she was fighting hard for her life. And I was super sad, right? Like that's what happens when somebody we love is fighting and not winning the battle. But I thought, she deserves for me to learn from this and grow from this and become a better version of myself because of the fight that she went through in trying to hang on for us. And, if you can have that approach to things that just are our deepest sorrows, like I think, oh man, the sky's the limit for what we can accomplish.
Wow. That comment about, you don't know the definition of serendipity. Again, my mind wanders. It made me think of that. What was it, 20 years ago, that song? I think it was Alanis Morissette, Isn't It Ironic? And English teachers were saying, that's not an example of irony. And just,
Yeah.
it's a song, like you said, you're an artist. Yeah. Um, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and, find out more about the blog, or I want you to give the names of your books, how they can get those, or just reach out and pick your brain as a leader, how do they do all that?
Yeah, so I'm at Allyson Appsey everywhere. So if you know how to spell my name, which is a little bit tricky, you can find me at AllysonAppsey.com. That's my blog. Or Allyson Appsey on all the social medias, including TikTok, much to my teenagers' chagrin. So and my books are available on Amazon or anywhere you can purchase books. But I have actually six books published. And the first one is called The Path to Serendipity. And the most recent book published is called Lead with Collaboration. And it's a complete guide for staff meetings, which some of your listeners might benefit from. And how can we make staff meetings a place where everybody feels like they are a contributor and that the meeting is valuable for them.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Athletic directors, they better be, having at least monthly meetings with their coaches. So we'll put it in the show notes, but if you're one of those people that has to listen, it's Allyson, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allyson, and then Apsey, Apsey. And as Allyson said, it's at Allyson Appsey just about everywhere. So, check out the blog, check out the books, and connect with her on LinkedIn. Build your network. That's another tool we talk about having in your toolbox. Let's go and take a break, but we're coming back with more from our guest, Allyson Appsey. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that I used every single day as an athletic director, and so will you. Things like scheduling, Student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't use that every day? Communication with coaches, with parents, with kids, with your state association, uploading schedules, uploading rosters, digital forms, digital signatures, you name it. Home campus does it better and easier. And all you have to do to get started is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. That's a great way to tell your unique story, the unique story of your school, highlight your finest students, and bring your school's legacy to life. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Visit them today. You'll be glad that you did. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Allyson, you and I were talking, during the break a little bit, and you talked about this idea of, and again, you're a principal, so your focus is a little bit different, but you talked about coaching in the classroom. Can you explain to our listeners what you mean and how that works out for you?
Yeah, I look at that from both the lens of being a principal and an evaluator of teachers and what that means and how coaching can be incorporated into that work, but then also with classroom teachers and students. And when we look at assessments and feedback, what components of coaching can we incorporate into the classroom? And when you think about out in the football field or when you're coaching cheerleading, it's in the moment, real time feedback that we're giving to athletes. And how often does that happen in the classroom? In the moment, real time feedback. I mean, sometimes what happens is where, students are completing assessments or big assignments, cornerstone assignments, and, we're taking a week or two to correct them. And then we give them either digital feedback or written feedback and hand it to the student. And nothing is meaning. I mean, the only thing that has meaning for them sometimes, and for some students, is the points or what the final grade is. And they ignore the feedback or read it and discard it and don't use it for improvement. And that's the opposite of what we do as athletic coaches on the field, in the game, in the sport.
Yeah. Let me ask you, for me, it's related. You might be thinking, "Oh, what the heck is Jake asking me this for?" Um, when I was in high school back in the first half of the 70s, okay, our coaches were virtually always teachers in the building. The football coach taught history, the basketball coach taught math, or whatever it was. Um, Nowadays, and for many years, that has been the exception. Most of my career was at private schools, so we had, I think, a few more teachers who were coaches. As a principal, what was your philosophy? Were you looking for a great teacher who could also coach or maybe direct a club, or you just knew it was going to be a needle in a haystack to find that best teacher candidate who could also coach, and so you just hired, I'm voicing this in extremes, you just hired that great teacher knowing you'd find somebody in the community to coach?
Mm.
What was your philosophy for hiring, if I can pin you in a corner like that?
Yeah. And I think, I'm looking for the unicorn, always looking for the unicorn, like the best of both worlds, where we have someone who is an exceptional teacher in the classroom or in the gym, if they're a PE teacher, whatever the case is, who then also is an exceptional coach and not hiring one or the other. And then, from my perspective as a principal, and I was a principal of a small high school, so I was able to really support coaches and alongside the athletic director in that continuous growth as instructors, whether it's in the classroom or whether it was, out on the field or on the court, in those interactions with parents and every aspect of that work, I was able to work alongside them.
Mhm. Getting back to your point about the feedback component that in sports, as you said, it happens instantly. The kid knows if they shot correctly or blocked or whatever. What were some tools, if you will, some tips, some skills that you tried to pass on to your teachers so that they could provide more, um, don't want to say instant, but faster feedback?
Yes, that's interesting that you say faster because FAST is an acronym that we use with Creative Leadership Solutions and the work of my boss, who is Dr. Douglas Reeves, an educational researcher, and he talks about fast feedback. So it is fair, accurate, specific, and timely. Which, I mean, if you think in terms of coaching, like you hope it's fair, you hope that the feedback is based on success criteria that we've already shared with athletes or with students, that it is accurate. In terms of the classroom, sometimes we're giving grades that are based on not turning work in rather than grades based on what students know and can do, and that it's specific to whatever skill that they're working on and that it is timely and is it realistic for it to be instant in the classroom? Maybe not, but there are instances where it can be pretty instantaneous. And when I work with teachers, I ask them to think about the most effective coaching they've had in their life, whether that is as an athlete, as a student athlete, or as a professional. And so often they talk about coaches that they had in high school, mostly in high school, and
Mhm.
sometimes in college. And the two things that they really talk about is that the best coaches they've had see them as individuals, they know their strengths, and they believe in their capacity to improve.
Yeah, and again, that to me, that is one of, again, one of our more frequent tools. I keep telling you not to go to the toolbox, and I keep dredging it up. Building those relationships, with the kids, whether it's on the football field, the softball field, or in the classroom. Um, the student athlete is going to be far more productive if there is a relationship, just beyond, the math curriculum or the football play or whatever it is. Very cool stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
I would want to come and be a coach in your building if you were the principal. Okay. Well, Allyson, this has just been so cool spending some time with you and having you share with our listeners some great stuff. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you know the importance of having a good AD. So we're going to take our final break. Hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this particular segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Allyson Appsey is going to put in her new athletic director toolbox. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes or even your coaches, you're really missing out. Athletic surveys are about connections. They're going to connect you with some people you probably already hear from, the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. But they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders who trust and support and value your athletic experience. And that's a tremendously valuable piece of information to have when you're meeting with that frustrated parent or that struggling student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that's going to help you take your athletic program from good to great. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Allyson Appsey, a longtime principal, an author, a blogger, educational leadership consultant. Right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Allyson, what 3 things are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
They're very similar to what I would put in any leader's toolbox. And the first is, it's really important that before you make significant changes, that as an athletic director, you understand the strengths of each of your coaches, each member of your team. And if you just, it's just one, just learn one strength of each of your coaches or member of your team. I think that goes a long way. And then if you communicate that you see that strength in that person, they're going to be willing to do anything for you. Because when we feel strong and positive, we feel like we can take on any challenge. When we feel weak and defeated and judged, every challenge feels insurmountable. So that would be number one. Do I keep going?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number two would be one of the first things I think is really important as a leader of people working, adults working with students, is to create a belief statement about what we believe about student athletes. So this is like, getting philosophical, but it is really important that we have that belief statement because we're going to weigh decisions that we make against that belief statement. So if we believe that behavior is a manifestation of skill, not will, that helps us with how we're going to respond to behavior problems that happen. So if we believe that every student athlete deserves an opportunity to grow and improve, that is going to direct some of the decisions that we make. So what do we believe? What are the most important things to us about student athletes? And then my third toolbox thing in their little tool in the toolbox would be to make sure that you nurture the most important relationships in your life, which is your relationships at home. You know better than I know in that athletic directors have a big job, and it's not like the athletic directors I worked with couldn't start their day at noon just because it went to 8, 9, 10 p.m. They were still starting their days, at 7:30 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and working until late hours. And it is important to take care of the people who matter the most, and those are the people at home. One of my former superintendents was retiring, and he gave a speech and said, I really like all of you, but who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with are these people. And next to him was standing his family. And I will never forget that because I am dedicated to my work and I really like the people I work with. But the people I'm going to, at the end of the day, the people I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, hopefully, is my family. And those are the most important relationships.
Oh, absolutely. I love them all. Okay. The belief statement of course, that vision, that mission, you got to make sure everybody understands, okay, these are the things that are important to us. These are the non-negotiables, if you will. And the family, I love the story that he told. Here's another one that I share. As coaches, as ADs, as principals, we might aspire to at one day be inducted into a hall of fame, which is great. We want you to aspire, but ask yourself, would your kids nominate you to be in the parent
Mm,
hall of fame? Would
mhm,
your significant other nominate you to be in, the
mm,
husband or wife hall of fame? So,
good
you know,
one.
make sure you have that balance. Tremendous tool. I love it. Okay. That tells me all I need to know about Allyson Appsey. Okay. One more time, Allyson, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, and listeners, I think you have a tremendous resource here. What's the best way they can find out all things Allyson Appsey?
There's a lot of things out there on the intranets, but all good, I hope, right? So you can go to allysonappsey.com and find my blog and links to books and resources. And also on social media, I'm at Allyson Appsey, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever, LinkedIn,
Mhm. And
TikTok.
Allyson also does, professional speaking. If you're looking for a professional development program, or even more so with your teachers or your coaches, reach out, talk to her. Maybe you can get her to come to your school and your community. Okay. Allyson, thanks again for spending some time with us. I know you're incredibly busy, but all the best with all your many endeavors. And thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.
Oh, you are too kind. For listeners, it's a joy when we see that you've listened to our episodes. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day with new content. So we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you come back for the next Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. And before we go, guess what? We're going to give a shout out to our sponsors one more time. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. You would really benefit by adding them to your team. Gipper.com, world-class marketing content for your school social media channel. Go to Gipper.com. Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an athletic director, we were a Huddle school. Go to Huddle.com for more information. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Home Campus is a platform that I used every single day, and so will you. Go to homecampus.com. Mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice little discount. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Let them create a custom survey for you so you can take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, and your parents. Athleticsurveys.com. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get started. Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. And finally, Snap Raise. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. Go to snapraise.com for more information. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.